evening to our public and to Dr. Cascone and my fellow board members and Mrs. Flowers. And we have a special guest with us this evening, Ms. Charlene Peterson from New Jersey School Boards Association. Ms. Flowers, would you kindly do the roll call for us, please?
Oh, you're muted, Ms. Flowers.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam President. Roll call, Mrs. Bretta.
Here.
Mrs. Merklinger.
Here.
Mr. Rothstein.
Here.
Vice President Tunnicliffe.
Here.
President Trigg-Scales.
Here.
Thank you.
Ms. Flowers. And
Please stand for the pledge.
yes, thank
You're welcome. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, salute.
thank you.
Pledge allegiance
To the
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Okay.
Thank you. And as Ms. Graftiza said, this is a special meeting for the board tonight. This is actually a training for the board members and the superintendent and Ms. Flowers as we prepare for our upcoming town hall on Thursday, May 13th. But before we get into our training, we are going to entertain any questions, petitions and hearings from the public. So Ms. Graftiza, would you kindly give us the 3-minute clock? And there it is. And thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, yes, this is the time for the public to speak. You're going to use the raise your hand function located at the bottom of your screen. You don't have to wait for another person to finish speaking, as it does put you right in a queue. Richard Keene, if you can please follow the prompt on your screen and give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Keene. I live at 22 Schmidt Road. Do I just speak now? Sorry, my first time.
Yes.
All right. First, I want to say thank you, everybody, for the work you've been doing. I know this is a challenging time and this is not difficult. There's a lot of different voices going and a lot of different priorities. And I can only imagine the pressure on all of you to get this done. I just wanted to say that I think it's really important that we do what we can to get the schools as open as possible by the end of the year. I think it's we're in a place right now where next year we have an opportunity to hit the ground running and make sure that next year is a success. So the more days we can get kids in school so that we can get like the end of this year feeling as normal as possible, the easier it'll be for the kids next year to get back into a normal swing of things. I know some other towns within the area and even within the state have already moved further along to having more days in person and more opportunities like that. And I think that it would be it's been proven it's possible, and I think it would be good thing for us to make sure we prioritize that. Just more information about you. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with my wife, Rachel Keene. We're both the parents of an upcoming kindergartner, Ben, and we're really, like, as parents, we've been really concerned about what his education is going to be like next year. So much so that we've been thinking about like going to like a private school for next year. Just wanted to let you know it's very important for us that like Ben can be in school and have a relationship with the other students. Like, we're very scared that it's going to feel like it's going to be an isolating experience for him, where he's going to feel like he's in a sterile place where he's not socializing with other children. And I think even any information on that sort of thing to make us feel more comfortable that like this will be a comforting and welcoming experience for the students coming into the school next year would do a lot to alleviate kind of our fears with what's going to happen next year. And anyway, that's all I want to say. And I want to say, thank you very much. I know you guys are all in a hard spot. There's no easy solution here. But Thank you for hearing my concerns. That's it.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Julie Bookbinder. If you can please follow the prompt on your screen and give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Julie Bookbinder, 37 Collimore. I can report that the first day of 4 half-days elementary has been going great for my household, so thank you for that. That said, I'm still trying to figure out the Friday situation based on some comments from Dr. Cascone on Friday and also on Monday. It still sounds like it's a scheduling problem for which there should be a solution. If I understood the comments correctly from those 2 meetings, it sounds like the principals were approached to have Fridays in school in elementary, and they raised some, legitimate scheduling issues that they had. What hasn't been clear is whether anyone tried to address those scheduling issues or not. And I understand from Monday that the issues may relate in some instances to room availability, that some of the services provided on Friday would be pullouts that if people were in person in the regular classrooms, there wouldn't be room to have the services because other spaces in the school may not be updated from a ventilation perspective. That does sound reasonable, but does not sound like an unsurmountable problem. There's a fairly substantial administration here in West Orange. It sounds like each school might have its own parent committee, that the district overall has a parent committee, Dr. Cascone has a parent committee. I'm certain that there are people in the community who could solve this, whose daily jobs may involve solving problems like this. And we just owe it to our children to try to solve the problem. It's really saddening to be a parent to elementary school children and say, sorry, you can't go in on Friday because there's a calendar issue. They look at me like, well, Mom, you do our calendar. And obviously the number of schools here is bigger than our household, but I'm certain that if people put their brains together, it is an issue that can be solved and we can get our kids in on Fridays in person for the rest of the year. I really hope that people are working on it and reach out to volunteers. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Okay, at this time, if we have any other one of our members of our audience who would like to speak, it's the raise your hand function located at the bottom of the screen. We have no call-in attendees today. Okay, there are no more hands raised.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Gratiza. And Dr. Cascone, do you want to address these 2 questions or statements?
Sure. I'll offer a few thoughts, not necessarily in any particular order, but talk a little bit about next year. And I'm gonna kind of continue to reiterate this message because I think that I don't think it's inappropriate for me to frame September in this manner, which is that what we have at this juncture is a sincere hope and aspiration for school to look and feel certainly more normal than it does this year. I think we can in part define normalcy as 5 days a week, every day. This is a hope and an aspiration of mine. I think of all of our community members, obviously parents included. It's a hope and an aspiration of our governor. And I think that's what when Governor Murphy spoke at his press conference, he was making a proclamation of hope and aspiration. To date, that's all it is. It's a hope and an aspiration that is not backed by any kind of concrete guidelines to help school districts understand how we're going to do that. in terms of, right, so like the normalcy piece, like the social interactions and kind of what Mr. Keem was talking about, the school environment. Let me take a quick aside for a second and share with you that I've been in a number of the elementary schools this week, and it's probably been the best part of my year, the last couple of days, getting in and interacting with students. And I can tell you, my impression of the schools has been anything but sterile, anything but cold. The kids have been terrific, in great spirits, chit-chatting with each other, even but from a distance. And so I think that even this year we're seeing that. The extent to which, we'll be able to break down some of these distancing barriers whereby kids will be able to sit on the carpet together or, shoulder to shoulder. I think we know that presently, if the guidelines remain constant, we wouldn't be able to do that, right? So one of two things is going to change in advance of September. One is either the guidelines which are presently in place, which are 3 feet minimum, are going to change, be loosened, be abandoned because of a rapidly improving public health situation, or they're not, and we're faced with the decision of, will we not abide them? Now, what we've seen is that while there may be communities wherein the school district has been able to move forward in an abandonment of those guidelines, or at least implementing them with much less stringent fidelity, this community will not support that. And that it will not support it on, that's to say, there's some folks who might support it, but there are enough people within this community who would not support that, and listen, I'm the superintendent, but I'm not of this community. I'm here at the will of the community to try and navigate what that will is and find a balance in that will. I think we saw, even when we were coming and trying to come back in January, that even at that time, and with the endorsement of the Department of Health, we were facing, as a board and as the superintendent, a fair degree of opposition, even from within the community, for us not to do that. So for better or for worse, I do not believe that this is a community that would support and endorse a district moving forward in abandonment of those guidelines. So I want you to understand that, yes, are we starting to project forward for next year and plan for things that we know we'll have to take care of in order to have our buildings at a higher occupancy? But for us to be able to predict in some way what the environment will look like, I would argue that just like we did at the end of June last year from the State Department of Education, State Department of Health, we need guidance on what that's going to be. But we are committed to that. It is our aspiration to do that. Relative to to this year, and I just want to clarify a little bit how we've arrived at this decision about Fridays. So, this was not simply the input from principals, although principals were a stakeholder group, internal stakeholder group that was, canvassed. This was also our supervisors that are responsible for curriculum instruction. And it was also, to some extent, gathering some feedback from our classroom teachers and our practitioners. I just want to kind of hit some of the points. Yes, these can be minimized to simply a calendar conflict. But when you look at these things, so for example, students that are currently in tier 3 of basic skills or interventions, these are our neediest students. Presently, they're able to get intervention 3 times a week. It would decrease that to 2 times a week. Conflicts in schedule with other services, world language, instrumental, gifted and talented, related services, BSI, related arts. And so when you say, well, it's a scheduling, we can work around this. Well, yeah, I mean, the way to work around it is that you're pulling students. I mean, there isn't additional time. They'll be getting pulled out of, instruction in the morning Obviously, we want to avoid pulling from core content, or they will lose their related arts. So you might have a basic skills student, you might have a special needs student that where now they're not required to be pulled out of related arts. Now they're losing art or they're losing music to receive a related service or something of that nature. Teachers that are currently are gifted teachers who are currently the co-teacher in primary classes would no longer be able to support those classes. Friday enrichment grades 3 through 5 would be canceled. And K2 would be rescheduled to new date and time with conflicts. Perhaps one of our most significant changes is that our related arts classes would go from 20 to 40 students. And the reason for that is if you take Friday morning out of play, and thereby an additional block of time where we can be delivering related arts, including instrumental music to students, then now those classes need to be combined into the other days of the week, and we'll have related arts teachers managing online classes of 40 students. And so I think it's like, when you look at those numbers, you say, well, that's all right. Well, that's worth it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's worth it to get the students in for an additional, 4 hours a week for the next 6 or 7 weeks. But, placing a teacher in a situation where now you're managing 40 first graders in world languages, I mean, that's a significant implication, not only the work conditions for that educator, but more importantly, or as importantly, on the instructional environment and the learning environment for those students. Related services, when compressing the schedule, creates issues where now, we're taking our related services and trying to, compact them into less time. Again, that's requiring students to be pulled from other classes. We obviously would avoid the core academic subjects. And we're currently administering Fontes and Pinnell testing. We would have to extend that window. And some of these assessments would have to be done virtual. So, what it came down to was, and in the end, like as a superintendent, ultimately, I'm placed in this position by the board, to have a perspective on the overall holistic operations of the school district. And in typical times, there's a certain degree of deference, that's provided to the superintendent to understand that obviously as a trained educational professional, educational leader, 17 years of experience in that, and, someone that appears to be earnest and sincere in the way in which he's approaching the job, that, he must be seeing something that we're not, right? Because it certainly would be easier for me in a lot of ways, right? To do this, right? From the standpoint of it would quiet a lot of unhappy folks right now, and prevent certain things from happening, which I think none of us are particularly pleased are going to be happening in the near future. And I could and all that would go away. So what is it that's preventing me as the superintendent from making this decision, other than what, from my perspective, would be a decision that is going to be extremely disruptive holistically to what we're doing? Okay. Thinking in some ways of kids, right? Understanding that we do have approximately 40% of our students who are learning from home, right? And recognizing that, we haven't sat on our hands. I think the expression that someone used in the previous board meeting was, that we're running out the game clock. I mean, of course we can agree to disagree, but running the game clock would be doing, simply doing what we had put in our reopening plan and not doing anything above and beyond that. We haven't done that. I mean, this week, just this week, we've moved forward with providing twice the on-site time for students. We hadn't even started this. Folks hadn't even had an opportunity to see what this additional twice time on site would do, not only for their students learning, but also for their mindset before there were clamors for more. So, but in the end, it sort of comes down to, there's either and I understand, because many folks have told me and written to me that they've lost trust in me and they've lost confidence and faith in my decision making. So I understand that it's a difficult thing for me to say that it sort of comes down to a level of confidence and trust, that I've looked at all the angles here and all the positions, and that to take that Friday at this point in time and to turn it into an on-site day and to create yet another schedule change, because that's what it would involve, and dominoes across the board, across the week for students who have become accustomed, many students who have become accustomed to certain schedules. Some of our neediest students who have become accustomed to certain routines and certain schedules, and flipping that upside down. Now, if we were talking about January, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. We would weather the growing pains and the tumult for a number of weeks, knowing that we had 4 or 5 months ahead of us to operate within that. But we don't. We have 6 or 7 weeks. And again, and just maybe a final point is, I do think that our trajectory, our path, the story of our district this year is relevant. And so when we're compared to other districts, and listen, there's value and merit to comparisons in some way. I would argue one-to-one comparisons oftentimes are not valid, but certainly we can draw conclusions and certain things and takeaways, right? So when you compare West Orange to a district that was able to be in since September, and I'm not going to belabor and go over the points of why and how we were not able to get into January, though I would argue that they were valid for different reasons. But to compare us to a district that's been sort of cruising, since September, sort of getting up to cruising momentum, and ourselves who really only got in January, okay, and now we're making another transition, which maybe another district did 2 months ago, and recognizing that with each transition and with each pivot, there are implications to that. There are things we learn. There are things that happen that we don't expect. And so that's just good practice. I mean, that's just good programmatic implementation practice is that you implement a phase, you implement it for a period of time, you assess how it's going, you determine if you can upgrade, and then you do. And we haven't even been in 3 days in our current. We don't know, for example, the extent to which the closing from 6 to 3 feet is going to impact the number of cases we have. We don't know. We have not had an opportunity to really assess how successful are we at doing this 4 half-day model, and do we have time to operate within it, even if we put in a modest assessment period of 2 or 3 weeks, which I would say is kind of modest. Let's say 2 weeks, okay? And then we're going to make this pivot now in late May, early June. So, is it regrettable on some level that we couldn't get in sooner? Yeah, it is. It's regrettable that that we had significant ventilation issues that we needed to take care of. I'm not going to say it was regrettable that we were advised not to open in November, but we were advised not to open in November. But that doesn't change that we haven't necessarily had the same amount of runway as some of these other districts have. So, in the end, like I said, I'm going to just a final point, and then I'll turn it back over to President Trigg Scales. Having credibility as a superintendent, it's important. Having credibility on, bilateral credibility is essential, right? So there needs to be a degree of credibility from within the community, recognizing that different people view that through a completely different lens. and as important is credibility from within the staff, because my ability, when the dust settles on this pandemic, which has really derailed us from significantly moving forward many of the initiatives which I was brought in to lead. So when the dust settles on this and we get back to the business of moving this district forward insofar as its initiatives, my ability to do that is directly related to the extent to which the staff believes in me, believes that I'm making decisions for the right reasons. And if they don't believe that, then I'm useless to this board, quite frankly, useless. And by proxy, useless to the community, because I'm not able to move this district forward progressively and in a quality fashion. So anyone that's worked in this profession, and maybe in other professions as well, have lived with and managed when a decision is made top down by upper management, and it's made in spite of and counter to the feedback that's being received from the boots on the ground practitioners, the people that are in the trenches doing the work. Up in the ivory tower, we're doing this. Well, we have reservation, we're doing it anyway. It's not good practice, never has been. And so, I could make the decision in opposition to the feedback that I'm receiving. And listen, I told my team, because they were saying, well, they kind of felt like, well, Cascone he kind of passed the buck over. No, it's not. Listen, I don't disagree. Like, it'd be one thing if I were saying, this is what my team told me, and I sort of disagree, but I'm going to listen. No, in listening to what they've told me, I agree with what they're saying. And that is not good managerial practice, to issue top-down decisions when your field people are telling you, Doc, this is going to create. And so, in as much as I know, listen, I know you want this. I want it. But you have to trust me on this one. You just have to trust me and know that what the model we have in place presently, I'm telling you, it was in the schools. The kids are loving it. It's great. And they're going to make a lot of great progress in the remainder of the year. And understand that we're committed to return to normalcy next year. But in the end, I stand by the decision. And I do think holistically it's the right decision for the district. Madam President.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cascone.
Ms. Chick-Skills, would it be okay if I just asked a clarifying question
Oh,
for Dr. Cascone?
Ms. Merklinger, you have a question?
Yeah, just a clarifying question I think might bring some clarity to the community that Dr. Cascone touched on, and I think it might bring some clarity to the community.
Go ahead.
In regards to Fridays. I think, Dr. Cascone, if you don't mind, just kind of maybe going into it just a little bit more for our folks that are joining us tonight. I think there's confusion about Fridays in terms of the schedules, and the thought, at least at the elementary school level, that if students are able to attend a schedule that's set synchronous, right? So they're doing this virtual learning, what would be the difference of going into school on site and following that same schedule? And I think that's just maybe where some of the confusion is coming.
Yeah.
Because we move from asynchronous to synchronous. And I think there's just some confusion over what is preventing us from being able to go on site and doing that same schedule.
Yeah. Part of it is that, and it relates, and by the way, before I take my stab at this, a principal shared an anecdote with me today. And I don't know if it's actually would be considered an anecdote, but that a parent who was quite unhappy with me, but had an opportunity to visit the building, and I don't know, maybe it was a virtual meeting, but anyway, had an opportunity to sit down, if you will, with the building principal and one of our special education administrators. And the building principal shared with the parent, kind of like with the ability of somebody who's living and walking this every day from a scheduling standpoint, what the impact was. And the meeting went very well. But what I can tell you is that operating virtual, and what I'm saying that is, and I know this has been at times, said, well, Gascon, he's passing the buck over the principals. Well, no, I'm not passing the buck. I'm just saying that as line administrators, operational administrators, they're much more facile with the intricacies and logistics. But that being said, the being able to operate virtually, particularly for our related arts subjects, gives us a lot more flexibility, right? So our related arts teachers, virtually all of them, many of them are itinerant, so they move from building to building, and by being virtual, it enables them to service a greater number of students in multiple locations versus if they were brick and mortar. The other piece, as Miss Bookbinder mentioned, I think it was Miss Bookbinder mentioned, is that when we're no longer pulling, right now we're pulling kids, into smaller group sessions, whether it be related services, intervention, even small group within a classroom. If we're on site, then those students are now being pulled out, need to be pulled out and moved into another location to be working to work with. Plus, like for our ESL students, in some cases, they would be on terminal while I can't even go into the detail about it. I apologize. But when we start to pull kids out of that classroom, it requires spaces which we don't necessarily have. The synchronous is not without its challenges. I'll tell you, it's not as if the synchronous has no wrinkles. They're just wrinkles that are a little easily solvable. So, I mean, my take on this, and look, folks have reached out to me. I do my best to respond to everyone that reaches out to me. And you're right, Ms. Bookbinder's right. We have an administrative team of 40 administrators, approximately. I think it's about 40. Building principals, assistant principals, curricular supervisors. All of these folks are available and able to answer these questions. People who design the schedule, right? Like I didn't design the world language schedule. Mr. Plata designed the world languages schedule. He designed the ESL schedule. So if anybody can talk to you about how those schedules are impacted by on-site, it would be him. But that's the biggest issue is that our related arts teachers are able to teach virtually versus brick and mortar, where they would have to travel from building to building, and it would be virtually impossible for them to service the students on site. I mean, we can provide a position paper, if that would be, if that would be helpful to the parents, if they'd like this, I've forwarded some bullet points to parents. We're presenting at the board meeting on Monday on learning loss and assessment and things of that nature. Mr. Mendez will be presenting with some members of the curriculum team. I can ask her to elaborate on that a bit more on the 10th. And I apologize that I'm not as facile with it as they are. Nor was I really necessarily prepared this evening to address it. But we can certainly provide additional information if parents are wondering why that's the case.
Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you very much, Dr. Gascon. And thank you, Mr. Keene and Ms. Bookbinder, for your questions. And please be reminded that, yes, we do have a board meeting, a regular board meeting on Monday evening. And we will be taking questions on agenda items. And as usual, following the business portion of the meeting and the presentation, we will have questions and comments on non-agenda items. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker for the evening, who is our field service representative from New Jersey School Boards Association and a friend of the West Orange Board of Education, Ms. Charlene Peterson.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to be here tonight, and I really appreciate the opportunity of the board, taking this time to come together for this training. I mean, you talked about the fact that you have another meeting in not that long of a time from now. So, recognizing the commitment that board members make, one of the things that we say that kind of helps identify high performing boards are boards that take the time to train together. You know, we see that most of the time, most of your work is you know, around the district and the needs of the district. And it's not that often as a board that you know, are able to take the time to focus on your work or things that are important to you. So in this case, you know, tonight we're going to talk about district goals and the formulation of them. And kind of the important piece of this is, you know, as board members, you know, part of what our responsibility is to make sure that we're aware of the aspirations of our community and make sure that, you know, that we're bringing that to our district so that the work that we're doing is help, you know, to fulfill our community's aspirations. And a lot of times, you know, board members will say to me, you know, I feel like I'm involved in the community. I feel like I know a lot of things, but, you know, how do I really, you know, am able to really find out what is important to our community? So I think that this initiative that you are undertaking here is, you know, an important step of doing that, of, you know, finding out from them directly what's important to them as you know, would set goals to set the direction of the district. So I prepared a PowerPoint to help guide this discussion. So I am going to share my screen and, you know, would like you to, again, just know, you know, that I just consider this to be just helping guide the conversation. But, you know, recognize that I would like any of you to jump in at any time, ask questions at any time, you know, because it's really helpful if this is more of a conversation. And because I am sharing my screen, I can't see everyone. So, you know, Terry, I may need you to, you know, let me know that someone wants to speak, or someone's welcome to just do that. But like I said, I'm just going to kind of take you through tonight. So as we talk about district goal setting, I kind of broke it down into 3 parts, kind of first sharing some information to really clarify what district goals are and their purpose, you know, recognizing that when we talk about goals in a school district, there's so many different kind of types of goals. So to make sure that we're all on the same page about what these goals are, to talk about, you know, recognizing that your town hall meeting is coming up, you know, what are some ways that you can help bring this process to your community? And then, you know, what are some things that we can come to a consensus or an agreement on that then would help us to use this information to identify the district goals for next year? So I'd said that we would first start out then talking about what those different kinds of goals are. And I was excited to see on your agenda tonight that you had your board goals right there on the agenda. So there, you know, was right there in front of everyone. So I'll talk about those first. So board goals, you know, like I said, we talk about the work of the board, and, you know, there is more and more evidence and about the fact that you know, high performing boards can have a positive impact on student achievement. So your board goals then are ways that you have identified to help increase your, you know, your governance knowledge and to improve your governance tasks. So kind of what separates those goals is that they are about the work of the board. So all of the tasks to complete the goals would be tasks that would be within the board's purview. So that's kind of what separates those. Our strategic plan goals are, you know, a bigger, broader goals that, you know, typically are relevant over a 3 to 5 year period. We would bring multiple stakeholders in to help us determine those goals. And then that helps set the direction of the district. But, you know, one of the things that we often tell people when we do strategic planning is, so how do we make sure then that these 3 to 5 year goals, how do we make sure this isn't a document that just sits on the shelf? How do we make sure that it actually is guiding the work of the district and that it is, you know, a kind of a living, breathing document? And the way that we do that is really through the district goals, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. So district goals are annual goals. So they, and we call them district goals because really they involve everyone in the district. You know, as we're talking about, kind of setting or determining what those goals might be, and recognizing that it's usually, if we just say an average 4 to 5, sometimes there's more, rarely less than that. But what are, say, those 4 or 5 things that are so important to move the district forward that we are going to come to an agreement on what they are, and then hold the superintendent accountable for carrying them out by putting them in his evaluation. So that then is how we are then all coming to a consensus or an agreement on what are those important things that need to take place to move the district forward. And like I said, it involves everyone in the district. We need to know what's, what the priorities are, what's important to our community. The board works with the superintendent in, setting these goals or helping determine the what are those priorities. Then once we have that what established, then we turn it over to our administration then to develop the action plans that will tell us how they are going to accomplish the what that we have set as the priorities for the year. And then our staff are the ones then that actually are carrying it out day to day in the classrooms, and then would need their feedback to come back to the administration. And then the superintendent would share that feedback with the board and the community at the, at public board meetings. So we're all kind of working together to establish these priorities and understand the work that's taking place on these priorities to help move the district forward. So I showed a little bit in the 3 circles, kind of how the goals kind of all work together, but it's really important to think about the fact that it's, that the district needs to be in alignment, that if we have established these priorities from kind of a higher level of what needs to take place to move the district forward for the year, then that then should be evident in the goals that your administrators have. It should be evident in the goals of what's taking place in the buildings. It should be evident in the goals that your staff members have, and then in the student achievement that, like I said, that we're seeing take place in the classroom, so that together we are driving the work of the district in alignment with recognition that the end goal is, increased student achievement for all of our students. So while we talk about setting district goals, just kind of want to, make the point that it's not a one-time thing and then we don't think about it. It's we need to think about it more in a cycle. So if we think about the fact that if we're, the school year begins July 1st, so we would like to be able to start that school year with kind of an understanding of what those priorities are going to be. So usually in the summer, early summer, that is when those goals are set. So typically, the board and superintendent are having those conversations about those goals. The board should approve and adopt those goals at one of their meetings. And then from there, like I said, then we task the administration with developing action plans that will tell us the how those goals are going to be accomplished. And then we need to have some updates so that when it comes time to evaluate the superintendent, there's no surprise to the board about what kind of progress has been made. And there's no surprise, to the superintendent about the board's thoughts, because we have had updates. It's important to have those updates in public so that the public is aware as well. Recognizing that in many cases, it may not be a formal report. Sometimes the reasons that we're getting presentations, that we're seeing student work, that, we're having, different speakers come is because of work that's being done to help advance these district goals. And then like I said, and then we hold the superintendent accountable through the evaluation process. And from the board's perspective, if we hold the rest of the district accountable, we should also hold ourselves accountable by completing a board self-evaluation, where then we would evaluate the work that we've been doing And then ideally then some of the information that comes out of the superintendent's evaluation and the board self-evaluation will be part of, information that we would use in setting the goals then for the next year, recognizing then that the cycle starts over again. So it's kind of an ongoing work to move the district forward and doing it, together as a group. So I've talked a little bit about some of the reasons why we set district goals. I mean, one of the reasons that we'll talk about in a minute is that we're legally required to do it, but also, it is important. So it's like I said, it's a collaborative process that we're working together, to set this direction for the district. We really need to keep our eye on student achievement. So this allows us to do that. And then we talked about that cycle. So we now know that, last year's outcomes were our baseline as we move forward. We need to make sure that we have the resources to carry out these goals. So it might, help drive some of the budgeting information. And then, like I said, this is where the board practices its accountability. We will always tell boards it's not your job to run the schools, but make sure they're well run. The evaluation process would be how a board would do that, recognizing that the district goals is an important piece of that evaluation process. And then again, helps carry out the strategic plan and make sure then that we are using that input from our community and staff to as one of the resources to help drive our work. So as we look at district goals and think about it, we always will often hear the term of SMART goals, and here kind of changed it a little bit to be more educationally centered. So thought the S this time should be student centered. I think typically it will say specific, but it seems student centered is more relevant for this case. It is important that we can measure them, that it supports the mission, your district has mission, that they are attainable, actionable, and again, that accountability piece, that they are rigorous. We need to make sure that we are working hard for our students, that they're relevant to the needs of our students, and that they're time-based. We're finding that more and more district goals may sometimes take more than 1 year to accomplish them just because of the complexity of the goals, or sometimes even, the situation that we found ourselves in this time that we didn't, expect. Like I said, usually 4 to 5 goals is the average. Sometimes there are more. And we really want to make sure, we recognize that there's a lot more things going on in a school district. There's a lot more work taking place, but we really want to hone in or identify, this fixed amount of things so that we make sure that we are doing these things really well, that it's taking, that it's getting the resources and the priorities needed without sending the superintendent and the district in too many different directions. Student achievement is the basis of the work that we do. So we need to make sure that at least one of the goals focuses on student achievement. And then for people who are used to perhaps sometimes seeing all the specifics that might be in the goal statement itself, just wanted to say that because we do have those action plans, that sometimes a lot of the specificity is in the action plans. So here's an example that the state provided of what they would consider to, to be a goal and what that process might look like. So here's, started out with kind of that high level goal, which is to prepare our students for the rigor of college level coursework. So, and sometimes, from the board's perspective or the community's perspective, this blue area, this might be as far as we go of just helping establish the what, and then, turn it over to our administration perhaps to tell us how they're going to do that or what that's going to look like. So, want to make you aware that we do have those specifics. So even if you don't see it in the goal itself, so in this case, there was a metric that was identified of year-over-year growth in the pass rate on the AP exams. They set a target to increase by 10% from the previous year. And then the outcome would be comparing this year's results to the previous years to determine then if we met that target. So here then it's clear to everyone, what the accomplishments were. It's clear to the board, it's clear to the community then, how we did in terms of this goal. So I have mentioned, action plans and said that that would be the work of the administration. So this is just a sample of what an action plan template might look like. So again, like I said, it is the work of the administration. So they would have the goals that were provided and then would take those goals and break it down and say, okay, how are we going to accomplish this? What steps do we need to take? What staff members need to be involved? What resources do we need? What timeline? And then also importantly, what are those indicators of success? How will the board know? How will the community know? How are we going to know whether we accomplish these or not? And so, when we look at the evaluation of the superintendent, this then is what we use to guide whether the goal was determined, was achieved or not, would be, did the superintendent do what he said he was going to do based on the action plan that was provided? So as we look at district goals and we talk about those priorities, how are we going to determine them? So we usually kind of go through a process. And in that process, we look at last year's goals. How did we do? Is there anything left that needs to be, still needs more work done on it? We look at our strategic plan. What do we need to focus on for this year to help carry the plan out? We need to look at our student achievement needs and what are those priorities for this year? Where do we need to put our time? Where do we need to put our resources? What's important to our community? And then what are, say, district initiatives that perhaps we started and now they've really reached the level that they need to be that, one of those 4 or 5 main priorities. We need to advance our mission and vision statement and make sure that the work that we're doing is, helps carry out those statements. And then do we have the resources or do we have a plan for the resources to help materialize those goals? So recognizing, that we all have different roles in this process and that it, like I said, it is a process and it is important that we all are part of this. You said that's what help makes the district goals. So from the community standpoint, we need to know, take into consideration what your values are, what your aspirations and your priorities. That's important in helping drive the work that we do as a district. We need to make sure that it's unique and meets the needs of your community. From the board's perspective, we will help, identify what those areas of focus are, recognize that we need to approve the goals and provide oversight that the work is taking place to accomplish them, make sure that the district has the resources they need, and then we will hold, the superintendent accountable through the appraisal process. From the superintendent's perspective and through his team, said they're developing those action steps. They're the ones that are actually implementing the work to accomplish the goals. We talked about how we all need to be in alignment. So making sure then that the district is in alignment with those priorities and then giving us updates. How are we doing? What's standing in our way? What's going well? What's not? So making sure that, we all have a clear understanding, and then our educators are the ones that are actually, in the classroom carrying this out day to day and, helping us understand what's working and what's not. So I had mentioned that this, that district goals are a legal requirement. So this is part of the statute that talks about that the superintendent's evaluation process. So we can see that the state has identified in statute that the superintendent's evaluation shall be based upon the goals and objectives in the district. So this then is just helping identify the fact that this is, an important component of that. So here I wanted to share an example of, so I said, okay, so through the evaluation process, how does the board hold the superintendent accountable? So this is part of New Jersey School Board's template of the superintendent's evaluation. And this is the goals section. So it would start with the superintendent inputting the goals, the superintendent doing a self-assessment, whether he thought the goal was achieved, satisfactory progress was made, little or no progress was made, and then providing comments for the board members to see that would help support that rating. And then each board member is asked then they can see the input that the superintendent provided, and then individually, each one of them then will provide their own assessment of this goal and provide comments as well. So this then is how the evaluation process takes into consideration the district goals and how then we hold the superintendent accountable for, moving these priorities along that we have established together. And this is part of the board self-evaluation. So I had said, that if this is how we as a board hold ourselves accountable. So from the planning perspective, this is part of what the board looks at or, evaluates itself on. So in here you can see that, make sure that we're setting the goals, setting the priorities, reviewing the action plans, monitoring the process, and recognizing the importance of meaningful public participation, and that we are supporting our, vision and mission statement. So here then is how the board help make sure that it's carrying out its roles as well. So, recognizing then, kind of what a district goal is, what all the pieces of it are. So how then do we take those steps? How do we have this town hall where we bring people together, and how do we work together to kind of collectively talk about this process and get information? So just kind of wanted to take you through the steps of what this might look like. So, would start out with providing information. What information is needed to help have informed conversations? We don't necessarily want to dictate or direct one way or another. We want to just to make sure that we are informing, that you have the information you need to have informed conversations. Then once we have gone through looked at all the information, then we, we'll talk about some of the areas where we would come to a consensus on, are there goals from last year we need to keep? Are there priorities that we all agree on? So then I'll go through each one of these steps in more detail. So just kind of showing you now what they are. Then we would, gather more input to kind of refine those. Then the next step, then once we've got that input and know what's important to everyone, to develop the goals. And then, like I said, then the last piece of it are those action plans. So as we look at then the information that we should share, here's some of the things that you might want to consider. We talked about the fact that, the work that we do should help support the mission statement. So it's important for our community to see what that mission statement is. It helps, talk about, what we do for our students, what benefit there is for them, making that this is, who we are and the work that we do. We need to look at last year's district goals, share what they were, talk about the work that has been already accomplished in them, and then, talk about if there's still more ongoing work. Looking at the strategic plan and saying, what do we need to focus on for this year? Now, in your particular case, you saw that your plan was expiring, 2021 was kind of its expiration date, and saw that was one of your district goals from last year was to evaluate what work is left in the plan. But again, we would take that into consideration as we looked at our district goals. Again, we talked about, student achievement and the importance of that, and making sure we all have a clear understanding of where our greatest needs are, where our priorities need to be. And then to look at any other district work in progress or any other priorities that we know, need to be a focus for the year. So here is your mission statement. I just thought I would share it with you now, just so that as you can see how it then will inform your community as we look at the important parts of it. To me, it said a lot right from the beginning when you say that you are in partnership with your culturally diverse community, and then how you want to help. And again, to me, I thought it was important that you said all your students. So again, you're making it clear that this is how you want to help every student that you have, and then talked about what the benefits are, or hope that your students will achieve as being here in your district. So this is unique to your district. So these then are your goals from last year. So you were a very ambitious group, I can see, with 6 goals during the pandemic. But they were all goals that, as you look at them, can see, how it, can help drive or move the district forward. So it would be important then to share these goals with your community, give them an update about what you've accomplished last year in terms of these goals, and then what work you think still needs to be accomplished in them. If there's any goals themselves that were the whole goal statement, like I said, sometimes goal statements are created with the understanding that they can't be accomplished in 1 year. So I don't know if that was the case with any of these, but make it clear, I guess, to the community what you have accomplished and what work is yet remaining in them. Okay, then here is just kind of your strategic plan. I just listed the goal statements, but you also have several objectives under each goal statement. So it is a much more comprehensive plan than what you see right here. But again, recognizing that it had 2021 as its expiring date. So, so recognizing that perhaps much of the plan has already been accomplished. So we might just need to make it clear if there's anything still in this plan that we need to focus on for this next year to help carry it out. Again, so recognizing that a lot of times when we have a brand new strategic plan and we have just brought our community in and we know what everyone's expectations are, then that will play a much bigger role in determining the district goals because it's already giving us what that input and feedback is from our community. So. And then also had mentioned then the importance of getting, student achievement information to share with the community that is the most relevant or what we consider to be the, where we need to have the most focus this year. And then any other work in progress that might be going on in the district, things that are priorities for you. So having said that, and by the time you have had these conversations with your community, then you should be able to answer these questions pretty much. And this, is kind of help shaping, your work moving forward. Are there, based on the conversations that we had and our understanding of what's been accomplished and what's still yet to be accomplished, are there any district goals from last year that we need to continue and work on and have the group agree on that? Are there any remaining priorities from the strategic plan that need to be addressed now as a district goal, and see if the group can come to an agreement on that? Talked about what, do we have an agreement on what our student achievement priorities are, and then agreement on other areas of work in the district. So we may have some goal statements that we carried over. We may just have some goal areas, like let's say, we know that say social emotional learning needs to be a priority, or your equity work needs to be a priority, or, so we may have some areas that we know that we need to form goal statements around that we don't necessarily have the statement itself yet, but at least now we have that priority or that understanding of what these, I'll use 6 since that's what you had last year, so of what these 6 areas need to be. So then recognizing that, you can decide as a group, do we have all the information we need? Or do we really want to, now that we've got our community, we've got everyone here together, do we really want to drill down a little bit more and get some more information from them? One of the ways to do that is that you could, depending on the number of participants you have in your town hall, you could, use the breakout feature in Zoom and go into, smaller breakout groups and have these groups talk. You could assign certain groups, either, goal statements or goal areas to talk about, and then have them really provide us a little more feedback about what they think we're already doing well in this area, and then where this group, where the group thinks that our focus should be. So again, helping to give us some more information to work with. So then assuming then that the group did, assuming that you did decide that you would like to go in small groups, I kind of, almost would think about this as being almost kind of like a mini strategic plan in a way. We're talking about the strengths and the challenges. We wouldn't necessarily be looking at the visions piece because we're, this is a one-year thing and we're looking at for the next year. So just kind of wanted to share some, I guess, some tips or dynamics with you that we have found works when we take members of our community and members of our staff and break them down into groups, how this works well. And we find that even virtually, like 8 to 10 members is about a good number of people to put together in a group. We like to just randomly mix people in groups and find that it allows for meaningful conversations when staff and board members and parents and even students, community members kind of have a mix of, different viewpoints. But especially while we're virtual, it's important that that work be captured. When we would do these live, we would bring our big yellow sticky sheets and the Post-it notes and everyone could write on them, but recognize now that we, don't have that opportunity. So I think it is important then for the district to assign someone who has the technology and, is assigned to be in each one of the groups to record the output or, the input of the group and make sure that they're sharing their screen so that everyone in their group can see it so that it really is a collaborative effort within one group and that the information then that comes out of it is the work of that group. Also, then if once we're done with our small group work, it's important for the rest of us then to share and see what, kind of see what everyone's thinking was. So again, depending on how many people you have and how many groups there are and the time, sometimes we are able to come back into the large group and then give each group an opportunity to share their work. Some, ask each group to assign a reporter who will speak on behalf of that group and kind of share that group's work. Sometimes there's just too many people and it will take too long. So the district might just post all of the results, say on your website or somewhere for everyone to see. And then it's important for our groups to, have a certain period of time that they know that they have to get their work done within and to be able to kind of, check back in and see how they're doing. And even for like say when we do strategic planning, like we like to have the superintendent have the flexibility to hop in and out of the different groups and kind of see what conversations are taking place. And, and even for say a moderator to do that, just to kind of keep everyone on track, make sure, that we're having meaningful conversations. And then to even take it a little bit step further to kind of help give some more guidance to our community members to make sure then that these conversations we're having are as meaningful as they can be so that we can get the information that we need out of it to really develop then the district goals that do help meet the needs of our community. So we always want to make sure the group take it, start out just, like I said, if we have people from different different stakeholder groups, make sure everyone knows who's in the groups. Then I always try to help people understand to kind of wear that same hat that a board member has to wear and say, well, you might be coming here representing a particular school or a particular grade or a particular neighborhood. When you are having conversations about the district, you need to consider the conversation from the viewpoint of the entire district, every child in the district, every student. How is this decision going to impact every student in the district? That's the level that the conversation needs to take place at. And then need to make sure that we stay kind of within that what, and that we're not talking about how we're going to solve the issue or how, how we're going to move the district forward. We recognize that that is the work of our educational experts, and we will leave that to our administration. What we need to do is we need to give them some direction. We need to tell them what's important to us. We need to help share our what. So that then, it's important to, get that point across to our community, to make sure that everyone, like many groups, sometimes there are some people who tend to have more opinions than others. And, we need to make sure that we are all here to share our thoughts and that we can learn from everyone and to give everyone that opportunity, and then recognize then that we should come to a consensus from the work of our group. And, we find that groups really do appreciate the opportunity to have these meaningful conversations and, have the opportunity to sit down and talk about your district. So I think, so that pretty much, as we look at then the work of our small groups, then, hopefully we have the outcome, we kind of have our goal areas, we have an understanding of what's important to, everyone that was part of this process. And so we may have some goal statements carried over from last year, but we may have some goal statements that need to be drafted based on the feedback that we received. And then once we have goal statements that we, recognize or agree, are what we want to use to move forward with, and the board should formally adopt them. I say that way it's clear to everyone what the goals are. And I know that your district does a really great job of keeping them on the website so that anyone at any time can look on your website to see what your district goals are. Again, we said that the superintendent and his team would then develop the action plans, and we say that you should allow them 30 to 60 days to do that. The importance of regular progress updates, and then recognize that the legal deadline for the board to complete the evaluation of the superintendent is by July 1st. And I do think that was my last slide. So I will go ahead and stop sharing, and just wanted to see if anyone had any questions for me or thoughts about what was presented here, or if you feel like you're in a good place now to be able to have your town hall meeting with a direction that you feel comfortable with.
Well, Charlene, I just want to thank you. I mean, I've been doing this kind of work for a number of years in my past life, but never in a virtual setting. So this was really, really helpful. Now, I'll just start out by saying some of our meetings, we have over 200 participants. And so where you talked about groups of 8 to 10, we'd have to bring in our staff to be able to manage the breakout rooms. Any suggestions on how we could manage that number of participants?
Like I said, we do the best that you can. If you can't do 8 to 10, maybe you can do 15. It has to be manageable. It has to be so that everyone feels like they can contribute. So we need to make sure then that it's not too big, that it's not allowing for meaningful conversations.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm just going to run through and see folks have questions. Ms. Huerta, you have any questions?
Thank you, President Terry Trigg-Scales. Thank you, Ms. Charlene. I think some of my questions are in regards to how Ms. Terry said, in the virtual setting, we've been able to reach more families and be more accessible, and just trying to help organize all of the collective feedback from the community is, I think, the focus, right? Or should be the focus, so that we can, I think also one of the concerns is that we have probably not as a diverse amount of people or families coming in and speaking out. I think we have the participants, but just not the amount of diverse voices. So how do we help with that and getting other people who might be shy to come and talk? I know some concerns with the community is they don't want to give their address out during the calls. And so there's different concerns like that.
So, I mean, this would be no different than any other way that you would reach out to your community, as much as you are providing, like you said, as much as you're providing the opportunity for people to come and participate in this. You recognize that there are people who either, you know, aren't doing it because they don't feel comfortable or for other reasons, but you still value their voice and value their opinions. So in whatever, you know, so you would have to decide as a group if, you know, if you would like to provide additional opportunities to hear from people outside of this process. So, I mean, that would be a decision that you would need to make as a group. So, I mean, it could be that you wait and see who comes at the town hall meeting. And if you feel like you don't have the representation from the different groups that you feel would be helpful, to then, you know, make a determination after that if something more needs to be done to provide you the input you need.
Okay.
Follow-on question to Melinda's. Do we have to, we do not have to, or do we have to take names and ask people to give their address in this type of format? Or is it permissible to have the breakout groups? Because really, we're just trying to collect the information. We don't care who gives the information, right? So that might give a level of comfort if we don't have to do that, because it's not like a regular board meeting. I don't know. Is that permissible?
Yes, I mean, you know, you will probably have people that will sign up. I mean, you know, you may, I don't know, are you asking people to RSVP or sign up in some way so that, you know, I'm not sure how you're gathering names, but yeah, no, the intent of this, you know, kind of similar when you do strategic planning, the intent is to, you know, have your community come, but they don't necessarily have to speak out or report out on who they were. A lot of times you like to know who they are just so you can thank them for coming or send them follow-up information or share the results and the outcome with them. But, you know, not necessarily to report publicly who they are.
And I just want to share with the board that we're going to have to do some work in preparation for next week. And I'm going to ask for volunteers who want to help further design our town hall. So Ms. Huerta, your question, and Vice President Tunnicliffe, these are some of the things we'll have to address.
Right.
Ms. Graftiza just put a note in the chat saying that breakout rooms are not actually available in the webinar format that we currently use for our board meetings. So that poses a problem as well.
Another question I guess I had as well was the language barrier that some of our families, maybe they do come out and speak, but they just might not be able to express themselves to their full capacity in English.
I mean, I can tell you that I, you know, worked with your board when it did the strategic plan the last time. And one of the, I guess, opportunities that the board made available at, you know, the time that was in person, and you had someone who was there to help those people that needed assistance with Spanish. And I think you also had someone there with French Creole, I think was the other one that you had there as well. So the district did recognize that you know, that additional support might be needed and did provide that support. So.
Okay, that's good to know.
Dr. Cascone?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to say something?
Just sort of a, you know, a brainstorming kind of about format. I just kind of had a thought. What is, you know, what if, you know, you kind of did it somewhat like a focus, like a virtual focus group with like a town hall option. So in other words, you know, maybe soliciting, let's call it no more than, Ms. Grabtisa, is there a limit to the number of participants you can invite to a meeting?
For the webinar?
Yeah.
The webinar, we have a 500 license.
Okay. So I'm sorry, not participants, panelists.
Participants is attendee or panelists.
Okay.
So overall, we can invite up to 500, no matter if they're on screen or off screen.
Okay. So thank you. So, if you created like a focus group panel and then developed a set of focus group questions. Now, admittedly, this would just be a very small sampling. But we could work with building principals to identify maybe 2 or 3 willing participants from each school with a critical eye on representation. And, just answering questions, critical questions from their perspective, having the full audience participate. There could be a Q&A segment where someone could say, hey, like, I really appreciated what that parent from Washington school said. I agree with that, or I want to build on that idea. So just a thought, just an idea.
Another logistic question, Ms. Groff-Tiza, is there, I'm assuming we can't do the same format. What would allow us to have breakouts?
Right. So I also misspoke. It's actually 1,000 on the panels.
Oh.
I don't know why I said 500 because we did full PD. We used to have 500, but then we had to go to 1,000 in order to do PD with the whole district. So it's 1,000. So you can have 1,000 people in your focus group.
But
I just added back in a lot of people on my guest list. So thank you.
So with the webinar feature, this allows the Q&A feature, which we use at the town halls, which is where people can type in, as well as the added security of people being an attendee rather than a panelist, so that we allow them to speak. If you wanted breakout rooms, you would have to go to a regular meeting format, which I believe we have the 300 license for. I will check on my other computer while we're doing that. And that would mean that anyone who comes in has the ability to be on camera and unmute and mute themselves at their will. But you can have breakout rooms.
So a moderator would not be able to mute?
They would, but if the other person unmutes themselves, then it's a battle of who can push the button quicker, I guess.
Oh, because I've been in large groups where we have broken into the breakout rooms.
Right, and that would be for a meeting.
Still had control.
Yeah, that would be for the meetings. There is like a little level of security that you can have where you can have certain, things with the moderator with the meetings, but it's more as a webinar is really meant for people speaking, people watching, occasionally speaking kind of a thing, rather than a meeting and participating.
Great. So in each breakout room, there would be a moderator as well, right?
I guess then you would invite a moderator to each breakout room.
Yes. Who would be able to.
Right. And you're also dealing with adults, so they're probably not as quick to
kick out the moderator.
Yeah. It's just a webinar adds more layers of security. And then you also don't have the Q&A feature when you're in the meeting. If that's something that you wanted to use, which is the part of the attendees typing in their questions with you answering using typing back.
So we wouldn't have that access if we were to do the regular meeting with the breakout rooms.
Correct.
Okay. And in terms of would these also be public, like how we're doing right now, live streaming kind of?
Oh yeah. They can be recorded. They can be that's all the same.
So if we have several breakout rooms going on at the same time, how is that going to work?
So the public would not see those breakout rooms unless they're specifically invited to the breakout room. They would remain in this room while maybe Ms. Tunnicliffe and yourself go out to another room. It's physically as if you step away to go to another room.
Okay.
And breakout rooms aren't recorded, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Just the large group when we come back together.
Correct. Yeah.
And if we report out, that would be recorded.
I
Correct.
think that would give an extra level of comfort to people who are not comfortable giving their address and name and things like that, I think as well.
Right.
So it's harder to scribe and get all the information without the recording. You might miss something. So, but
Right.
and I guess you could
Yeah.
also use the chat function for people. I mean, part of it is that we are a community and we want to understand the community and know the community. So it's, it's nice to see faces, but I understand the, the concerns for sure.
So Dr. Cascone, so I'm going off a little bit on your comment when you're saying the focus group panels with like questions. Would that be something that we would provide prior or try to gather and get together?
Yeah, and I'm just trying to put a critical eye on feasibility in
Mhm.
terms of getting, putting the pieces together between now and then. And I feel like that's something where we could be feasible. Whoever ends up from the board, obviously I'll join in and contribute what you feel I can. Develop a set of focus group questions. We could discuss kind of the means by which we would solicit parties to be part of that group. I know for example, when I formed my parent advisory council, I solicited input from the principals. I said, basically, I'm looking for a diverse group, people of different backgrounds, and I'm looking for folks who are engaged, but not necessarily officially through a PTA capacity, and people who are, going to bring, critical feedback to bear, but do it in a balanced, measured way. And I think the group that I got is outstanding. So we could do something similar, and probably have a relatively easy time putting that together, and just use that as kind of a springboard, to ideas, where then the community that was participating in the, not unlike in a board meeting, they could build and piggyback on ideas that members of the focus group could even respond to questions from participants, right? So, and I think it's logistically feasible to pull off in the next week.
That's my concern. Have we given ourselves enough time to adequately plan this? We're talking about a week. When we set these dates, we were like, oh, we can do this. But now I'm really just questioning, and we'll have to have this conversation. Is this something that we can do and do well by next Thursday, given that we have some other things coming up in the meantime?
Well, I think we could take advantage of the PTA things that there's several PTA meetings that we're doing for the 12th that
But
will be,
that's the 12th, yeah.
yeah, the day right before. So, I mean,
But
I think
that's what I'm thinking, if we
Mhm.
gave ourselves a little more time. But that's just what I'm feeling right now, is that we would have time to lay out a plan to
Can I
reach
ask?
folks.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Just actually, kind of, I think it goes along with this. But one of the questions I had was, does Charlene, if you have any maybe best practices, because what we noticed when we did the town hall for the budget, we did not get a lot of participation. We had less than 100 people attend the town hall regarding the budget planning it. And the idea behind that town hall was to get an idea of what was important to the community when we were doing our budget that we just passed the other evening. So are there some best practices that maybe you can share with us that other districts have done that gets better engagement? Because we're sitting here and we're starting to get a little worried and nervous about the number of folks that may join to participate. And not to be not optimistic, but I don't foresee us getting a huge turnout. I don't see us getting 200 or 300 people joining to talk about board goals next week. Just being realistic. So is there a way, because obviously we would like to have better engagement, is there a way that we can get more participants, or are there some practices that other districts have done to get that engagement there?
Well, I have to say, my first initial thought when you said, 100 people and consider that low, which I guess it is for your district size, and most districts would be, please tell me, how did they do it, right? How did they get 100? Because we wouldn't be able to attract anything like that. I also have to say, as a board, that I don't know if you're giving yourself enough credit to recognize that not that many boards do town halls like you do. And that you are really kind of probably more on the other end of reaching out to your community like this and engaging them like this. So, recognize that you're trying, I guess, we always say, try and meet, as we say with our students, try and meet them where they are. And the same would kind of be true to our community. Like, how do we bring them, or how do we engage them in a way that's comfortable for them and, allows them to provide us the input we need in a way that's, like I said, that's kind of welcoming and non-threatening and safe, I guess. So.
I think along with reaching out to how Dr. Cascone suggested the principals, and like when he reached out for the parent advisory committees, making sure that we're sending out the notification or like the questionnaires to the parent advisory committees, the PTAs, the diversity equity committees, all of the committees who are more intimate, who already have, people that they communicate constantly with. Because even if they can't make it to the actual meeting, if they even answer the questionnaires or have some type of input where we can kind of go off of and contribute for the Thursday, I think would be helpful.
The other groups we should target too are certainly the booster clubs for athletics and for the band. And those parents are super active and involved in those things. So it might also be another avenue that, outside of that we could, at least communicate the information out to.
Right. Right. And our student liaisons could probably help too.
Yeah, because it would be great to get students there too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that's really important to have student involvement.
Yeah.
And we've got WOCPAC and,
Yep.
we've got other
Right.
organizations. Again, I'm just wondering, if we can get this together.
Need more runway, I think, to do
Yeah.
it properly.
Yeah.
I had a couple of clarifying questions. Forgive me for being a little slow tonight. So what we're talking about is the development of this coming year's district goals, not board goals, correct?
District, yeah.
Okay. And the goal of the upcoming meeting that we would be running would be to gather feedback from the public on the values and interests from the community that could inform the development of those district goals, but not to adopt a set of district goals in that one evening, just an opportunity to collect information.
Right.
And so the question really becomes a question of, as President Trigg-Scales has mentioned, have we allowed ourselves enough time to secure the number of people we think we would need? And I think, by the way, just to clarify, many of our normal meetings have attendees in the hundreds, which is terrific since we've been doing this virtual. But the budget town hall meeting that we did, unless I'm really misremembering this, we had 15 or 16 people attend. Am I right about that? Yeah, so that town hall was not particularly well attended. And I think it was, it was disappointing to me because I think we really were hoping to get a lot of feedback, the budget being such an important aspect of the work that we do. So same thing for here, setting the district goals. I appreciate that the other board members are interested in finding a way to give ourselves the latitude to maybe help make this a well-attended event, but hopefully not so well attended that it's unmanageable. I think as Ms. Huerta said, if you get 100 people in a breakout room, you're going to hear one or two people talk. Most people are going to sit back. On the other hand, if we've got 8 to 10 people in a breakout room, you're going to hear 8 to 10 people talk. And so, it's finding that sweet spot, and I don't know how to control that. But also, it occurs to me in terms of organizing this, it's not just driving the people to attend, but as Dr. Cascone mentioned, we need moderators for each room. We need those moderators to be provided with the information that they need in order to facilitate the discussion appropriately and make sure that we're on task and on target. And I don't know if that documentation exists to help facilitators lead the discussion. So there's a lot that needs to be pulled together in a short amount of time.
Right, and the board, along with Dr. Cascone's help and any administrative help, we're looking at the group that has to make this work. And this is really moving us into a continuous improvement model. I've been talking about that, and I feel really excited. that we're going to be beginning this process now that will carry us through, the fall and into the winter, right through the superintendent's evaluation, the board's evaluation, the action plans. It's really going to set us up in a very good place. So I'm really excited. I just know that there's a lot of work to do, and I don't think we can do this well by next Thursday.
And I'm sorry, I also forgot to ask one question. What is the deadline for us to adopt our new set of district goals?
And just ideally at prior to the opening of the next school year, right?
Summer work, a lot of work.
Yeah, but ideally, prior to the summer, so that those goals can, right, as President Trigg-Scale said, inform summer planning, administrative retreats, even summer PD, things of that nature.
Sure. Okay.
So I think if they were to be, what would be, I think, a great step, great progress, because I think we adopted them last year. I think like late summer would be if we adopted them maybe at the second June meeting.
Yeah.
Would be ideal.
Right. And then you have the summer to work on the action plans with the staff. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good thing. So
well, sorry, President Trigg-Scales. So I mean, I think that I would tend to agree. I mean, I think we could probably get it done, but I think looking reflectively at the budget town hall. I mean, I think in addition to being sort of at a tough time of year, right around the holidays in December, but I also, from a district perspective, I don't think we did the kind of promotion and advertising. And, and I think as Mr. Rothstein said, is at that point in time, there really isn't a relevance, whether there should be or not, there isn't a real relevance to that topic for folks. I think this has the potential to have a lot more pizzazz to it, particularly if you have, parent and community members that are participating, and, I think, and we give it some lead time and promoting it. I think, I like, based on what I've seen from this community, I think we get some good participation at this. But, even just the advertising, the promoting piece, just with, a week doesn't give us a lot of time.
So
I do want to challenge you though. I think 10 days before Christmas is when everybody is thinking about school budgets. So it is the right time.
Oh, okay. All right. I stand corrected, Mr. Rustin.
All right.
And we're just doing the student achievement report at the May 10th board meeting. We're just rolling out that data. So to turn around and in 3 days be able to turn this around. So I
so are we looking to change it from
we
Yeah.
need to
13th?
push it
So if
out.
we can start moving forward with this conversation, are we looking to cancel next week's goal setting meeting, town hall, and postponing it to a later date in June?
Reschedule, yes.
In June, or do we want to merge it with the policy workshop that we're doing on the 17th?
Mm-mm. Oh, I don't know.
I don't think we can do both in one night.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think-
how many policies are we doing?
On the 20th, you mean?
20th, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I have the 17th on my phone.
I'm foreseeing the 20th, bringing some revisions to bear for the board to review, not for adoption, but just sort of that intermediate step between first and second reading, where you're just providing feedback, and then they would be moved forward at the first June meeting for second reading and adoption. So I would consider that as being a fairly robust work session on the 20th from a policy standpoint.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, so I think we'll have to look at the calendar and see if we can come up with another date that works for all of us and Dr. Cascone.
So are we looking to do it more and so Dr. Cascone, you said ideally before the summer to be adopted by the second June meeting? Is that the goal?
Right. So if we look at some chronology here, I'm just give me 1 second here. So June, we have a board meeting on the 7th, all right? And then I think we have our second June meeting is the 21st.
Mhm.
Let's see here. We have a policy meeting on
The
the
14th,
10th of
10th and 14th.
10th
10th of June, right?
and 14th.
I mean, you really, I mean, I think that week, I think that week, hate to say it, that week of the 7th probably makes the most sense. Unless we wanted to do it the week before, the week of the 31st. So on maybe the 2nd or the 3rd, Wednesday the 2nd or Tuesday the 3rd.
Memorial Day.
I'm not free either of those days.
The senior awards are also on the 3rd. I'm not sure if that's something
Yeah.
you'd want to consider.
I have a
Yeah.
little-
Okey doke.
No. You said the
Um,
9th?
Well, I mean, the 9th is a policy work session, you know, and we already have a meeting the 7th. So if we were to skip, and we have a policy work session,
No,
on,
No,
is that the
On the
9th?
10th, we have a policy work.
10th is the
Policy
policy.
work.
10, so not the 9th. Why do I, oh yeah, we're okay. I mean, listen, it would just be, it would involve 3 meetings in 1 week, which is, it's a lift.
What we're doing
Um,
now? Or, well, not really, right?
So what's scheduled on the 7th, Doc? What are you?
That's a regular
Board
public meeting.
It's our regular meeting.
Right, but I mean, is there something special presentation, something you have planned for that?
I think we might have some curriculum presentations on the 7th.
Mhm.
But nothing else is jumping out.
Are we doing year-end recognition?
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Tunnicliff, that would be at the 7th,
On the
correct?
7th.
Yep. Thank you. So to me, I would say, you know, unless we back it up into, you know, the end of May, which, you know, doesn't give, I mean, gives us a few weeks. Looking at the 25th of May.
I'm not available that whole week.
What about the week of the 17th?
Yeah, I mean, it gives us 2 weeks to prepare. Gives us a little bit more time. The 17th, we have a policy work session on the 20th.
20th.
And there's a council of PTA meetings on the
The
19th.
Well, the 17th only gives us 2 more days.
I'm not sure if this means anything, but the original board meeting was on the 17th, but it was moved to the 10th. So I don't know if that was an earlier scheduling conflict that someone had, which is why it was moved to the 10th.
No, that
Oh,
was.
okay.
With budget, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the other option is that, you know, I know obviously the ideal is the end of June. June's a busy month. We could do it early July, adopt it at the July meeting, and it would only, you know, delay us a couple of weeks in terms of it informing our summer work.
Yeah.
What about May
What's going on the week of the 14th? What did we say other than policy?
The week of May,
June 14th.
June 14th.
Well, that's when we wanted to adopt it, right? Or no?
Like the 15th, 16th.
No, the 21st would be.
Okay.
Yeah, the week of the 14th. Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
policy meeting.
The week of the 14th works. We could do like this. We could do like either Wednesday the 16th or Thursday the 17th.
Yeah.
I think a Wednesday.
How's that look for everybody? Cheryl, Gary?
That's fine by me. I just want to point out that the next opportunity then, I think, to adopt the policies would be July 12th. It's
Yeah.
quite a while later, unless we scheduled an additional meeting.
But I think we have to go through all of the
Absolutely, there's work to be done, but
Yeah.
stuff.
just wanted to make
after,
sure.
so we need time to review it and to
Process.
codify it.
And actually,
Doc-
I'm sorry, Gary.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if we adopted district policies on July 12th, that's pretty well into the summer, and I'm not sure when the work that you would like to do with the goals would really best be available to you. So,
Well,
can you work with that?
I can, and I'll tell you why. So if we get that feedback on the 17th, we have it in some some form, and the week of the, I believe the 21st, we hold, we'll hold an end of, no, I'm sorry, the following week, I believe it's the 29th. We'll hold a full day administrative team retreat. And one of the primary purposes of that retreat are to basically work on goals. So what I could do is bring some of that raw feedback back to the administrative team to kind of help distill it down into something that resembles more of a goal. And then, you know, kind of bring those back to the board in sort of draft format, ultimately to be approved later in July.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Okay. The only thing I'll say is June 17th. It's not a lot different from like December 15th from the standpoint of like time of year, right? But busy time, but
The middle school graduations are the 18th, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
What about, Cheryl, are you away the week of June 1st? Is that what you said? Is that the week you're away?
I know I'm away from the 21st to the July 1st and the May 24th through the 29th or 31st, actually.
Okay. So what about, I'm looking at like June 2nd or 3rd. Is that any better?
Not for me. I have a work commitment the 3rd, and it's the first commencement, so I can't, and I'm running it, so I can't.
Okay,
I don't want to do the 2nd either, because there may be things I need to do.
no problem. We're just searching.
Yeah.
Okay.
June 1st, an opportunity. It's Tuesday, June 1st.
Not for me.
Okay.
Mm.
Just picking out the dates you guys haven't said yet.
There aren't too many left, Laura.
June 16th, Wednesday, June 16th.
That I can do.
But
Yeah,
that is the date we're talking about now.
that's the one that's on the table now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
We were looking for something sooner. What about May 24th, Monday, May 20? I know that's a little sooner, but.
I'm not here that whole week.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yep.
right. And anything like the 17th is still too close
Mm-hmm.
So
now.
we're looking for the date for the town hall itself.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're saying that June 16th seems to be the date that we're all available.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be
And-
able
and,
to
yeah,
get
have
the,
Time.
And that'll give us sufficient time. And that's like 4 weeks to give us to
yeah,
prepare for that.
yeah. And we can get a lot
But
of
you're-
input in the meantime.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait until the town hall to get the input from folks. That can be the night that we pull it together.
Mm-hmm.
So this may give us a chance to really tap the community in a different way.
So, but Cheryl, you're saying that it's middle school graduations that week, or
On that
That's-
Friday. On that
That's-
Friday.
oh, on that Friday.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. What do
Yeah,
you?
and they're both on the same day, so it should be fine.
Okay. I think that looks like the best bet.
All right. Do we want to try to do that? Charlene is hanging in there with us. I don't want to keep her here all night while we're trying to find a date.
Sorry.
So, anything else, board, for Charlene?
No,
I kind of feel like, sort of like in regular meetings, getting an opportunity to go through the presentation. I'm sure I'm going to have follow-up questions,
Mhm.
but if it's okay, I'll just email those questions.
Great, great.
It was really nice. It did sort of help me to start to shape together an idea of what I think we can do to really effectively bring in some community feedback into the development of these goals, which I think would be outstanding. So
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's a
I
great
really
process. Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity. Okay, well, I will leave you then. So,
Thank you, Charlene.
Thanks, Charlene.
okay, good night, everyone.
Good night now.
We appreciate it.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Good night.
Good night, good night.
Madam President, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify that we are removing the 13th and we're moving it to Wednesday, the 16th at 7 p.m.
Is that working for everyone? Once again, June 16th at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yes.
That
yeah,
works for me.
We
Okay,
need to take a roll call.
Ms. Flowers,
great.
you made note of that? Okay, thank you.
Can we, in like on the Board of Ed app and on our calendar, make that very clear that it's the town hall regarding district goals? Because I think just sometimes there's confusion when we post it over what it is.
Yeah, I think this is one where in addition to that, we're, work with Mr. Bashkoff to, to put together, kind of something
Some
that,
type of campaign.
a graphic that pops and,
Mhm.
and, things
Yeah.
of that nature. So, but yes, for sure. We'll make sure
Thank
that
you.
yep, no problem.
Any volunteers who would like to work on details of our town hall? I see you turning your back, Mr. Rothstein. I see.
Sorry.
I'm happy to help because this is what I live in, virtual world now. So I'm
Yeah,
happy to help with with this.
I feel like
Good,
this
good,
could
good.
fall, I don't know if this falls, with the PR. I
Yeah.
feel like that's very
Yeah.
much, putting
Well,
out the
this is-
information.
This is more than PR.
Well,
This is
yeah,
strategic planning the town hall.
okay,
PR is a part of it, certainly.
right.
Yeah.
But
Did
I
I
mean,
hear? I'm sorry, Ms. Merklinger.
oh no, it's just to say, I mean, Melinda and I can certainly work together on it and pull it into our PR plan. I think Melinda shared that with everyone today. But I'm happy to work with Melinda on it.
Okay,
we
so
take
we're
together?
talking about the
Of it
PR perspective.
What was that, Jen?
Should we each take sort of a piece of it so that it's not, you guys handle PR and then I can help with logistics and I don't know, everybody.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea to have committees, like almost like subcommittees for it.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Cheryl, I know we
One.
haven't shared really the our like action plan thing yet. I added
Right.
some details, but I don't know when we wanted to share with the board because
Oh, my bad. I thought you sent that to everyone. I apologize.
no,
I
I
didn't
think
realize it. Okay.
I think I just sent it to the PR committee because I wanted to make
Gotcha.
sure that
Okay.
it was okay.
My bad. I thought you sent it to everyone. I apologize.
Okay, so Jen, I'll work with you on logistics.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to something that I'm not sure if I heard it correctly, but I think, Ms. Rocha, that you had suggested the possibility of putting some of the questions that we would address in the town hall in a survey format so that people who were not able to attend would be able to provide some sort of feedback. Is that what you said or what your intent was?
That and also that we can bring it up. So if we have it by the 12th, right, when we're doing our PTA meetings, or we're all going to, I think that gives a good opportunity for us to, because even Jen earlier, you were asking, what is our role at these PTA
Yeah.
meetings that we're doing? And I know Terry said that to listen. And I think this goes hand in hand with that, letting the community know that we are starting to set our goal meetings and that we just really want to listen, not necessarily put it in our own, our own voices in it, but just kind of gathering feedback to bring back to the board.
Mhm.
I guess the reason I brought up specifically the idea of a survey is on the one hand, I love the idea because I think it reaches people who won't necessarily show up to a meeting to participate. On the other hand, it might gain input from some people who might otherwise show up and participate, but instead they contribute via a survey, and then we don't have the attendees. So I don't know what the right approach is there, but I think that's worth a little bit of thought about what the optimal way to use that idea is, when to release it, how to not sort of feed on our own attendees, and ultimately the more response that we can get, I think that would be very helpful to us.
I think we should make it clear that the survey is just kind of to get like a foundation maybe, and we still want, even if you do the survey, for you to participate, and just make it clear that if you have to do one or the other, but it's preferred that you do both. I don't know.
Well, and I think the first step is working with Dr. Cascone, because we need to look at the current district goals. We need to look at the strategic plan. And we need to frame all of that before we do anything else.
Right.
So that,
Madam President, I'm sorry, if I can
point.
interject real quick.
Yes.
Another way that, which you might not be aware of with the webinar version, with the people who are currently watching us or watching the town hall, you can put up survey and polls live on the screen where the attendees can participate. And not only you can see the results, but they can also see the results. It's anonymous. They won't see the names, but are you having a fun time? Yes or no? And then you can see the people in real time, you know, their answers. So if that was something else that encouraged participation during the town hall.
Or even during board meetings, I think.
So I'm glad you're on this. Ms. Wilson, so we need you.
Can you do narrative feedback, or is it just yes or no? Or are there
You
are
can,
there other options that you can plug in besides a yes and no?
so there's absolute questions that you can have them write in their own answer, pick multiple choices or a yes or no, like a one question kind of thing. And those questions you do want to think of beforehand because you do want to set them before your webinar starts. But there are polls that you can do in real time as well.
Can you rank order things, like say, like if we come up with a list and say, you know, of 10, 20 items or whatever, and say, rank these from 1 to 20 in order of priority, and then will it give us sort of a graph that shows where the
I don't believe you can do that. I would have to look into it, but you can do something where you have 5 questions where you say it's the same 5 questions and rank them in order, which one is first, and then out of the next ones, which one is second. You know, I can definitely look into that for you.
Okay, that would be great, because I think that would be helpful, because that right away gives us a visual of here are the top 5 things that we want to focus on, and let's drill down on that and then go to breakout groups or things like that. And then, you know, we can certainly get other feedback out of that. But I think it would be a great way to target and figure out, like, drive the conversation in those areas and kind of do a drill down on those specific things.
Okay. Gary, is there a particular interest that you have? Because we can do 2. You know, we can mix up the groups as long as it's just 2 of us on a committee.
I'd like to say yes, but again, a slow evening for me. I'm not totally clear on what the what the needs are.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, if there's another, so the way that I'm under, well, I think that Cheryl and Melinda, we're going to pair up on part of it, and Terry, you and Jen, we're going to pair up on another. What else are the needs? And sure, I'll be there.
Well, reviewing the current district goals, looking at the strategic plan, that has to be done. That's a piece. If Jen and I are working on the logistics, that's how it's going to look that night with the town hall. Would you like to do that? Because I can shift over to.
Sure.
Would you like to work with Jen on that?
That would be
And
great.
how the
Yeah.
town hall is going to look that night, along with Lauren?
Sure.
Yes.
great.
Okay. Okay. And I'll work with Dr. Cascone and company in reviewing where we are at this point in time.
So just to be clear, Cheryl and I are going to work on the town hall
Pushing it out.
format. Oh, pushing it out, promoting
Pushing it out to the public.
and getting the information out. Okay.
Yes. Mhm. Mhm. And this is raw right now. I mean, we're just putting these pieces together. So give us a little bit of time, you know, give me input, what you're thinking. And then we'll try to refine it, get something out, but at least we have some time now to work on it. But Melinda, to your point about PTA meetings, that's really important to at least plant those seeds. And so that's May 12th. We have some time to get that out.
So there is one tomorrow that Jen signed up for. Majority of them are May 12th, and there's just a couple.
Right.
Well, no, there's still a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 in May. Let me look back at the that are not signed up for yet, but a majority of them, I think it was, yes, the majority of the meetings were on the same evening of the 12th. So which made it a little harder for us to be able to break them up.
Has everyone signed up?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I have not signed up. I will do that this evening.
Okay, great.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have an event for my son, a legacy meeting, ceremony on the 12th, so I can't make it.
But
Would
there's
you,
some later in May, I think.
yes, there's a couple more in May that
Yeah,
you
all
might
the
be able to.
elementaries are on the 9th. So we won't be able to hit all the elementaries, but maybe in June, because I think some of the elementaries have a June meeting as well.
I was trying to resend the sign up Genius, but they were having, I guess, trouble on their website because I wasn't able to pull anything up
No.
earlier
I can
today.
pick up another one.
I just
to
connected
make
to
sure
it.
that-
Yeah, I was able to log in now too.
Um,
So
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to go back to the mention of the 5-year plan. And just to clarify, we're not revising our 5-year strategic plan, but you mean to look at it in terms of how it can inform the development of the district goals.
Yeah, where it fit in with what Charlene gave us. And we're sending you the PowerPoint, so you can go back and look through it.
Perfect. Thank you.
And again, in that Governance 1 book, I had shared with you the goal development. So yes, there you go. So you can go back and look in your Governance 1 book and get some more detail about goal setting.
so Cheryl, there's one on the 26th, a meeting.
May.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm away that week.
Mhm. So then there's also, the 19th, the Council of PTAs. I think the council would also be a great opportunity because all of, or a majority of the PTA leaders are there. And so I'll make sure that they get whatever questionnaire or survey type thing, they get it before that meeting. So Dr. Cascon, I don't know if you were intending on participating on the Council of PTA meeting, but you could be there to kind of interact with the leaders of at that meeting.
Sure.
So I'll make sure that they have that as well as soon as we get it.
Okay, so are we in a good place before we get in a better place?
I think so.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. This has been great. And, talking about our public, I think we still have 10 members of the public on tonight.
19.
Well, I think we're in.
We're 9.
Oh, sorry.
So we
That's
already have some informed members of the public, which is wonderful. So we're happy you stayed with us, and now you've been through the training with us. So you'll really be expert when we have our town hall.
And spread the word.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Is there a second? Vice President Tunnicliffe?
Yes,
Yes,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everyone, and good night.
And everyone.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you. This is to inform everyone that I want to end the meeting. It'll end for those both on and off screen, and no other business will be conducted. Have a great night, everybody.